Hi guys. Okay, so for your next demo, I'm gonna go over some knives and then some knife cuts, and I'm gonna have you guys practice these at home. So first, I want you guys to look in your kitchen and see if you have a knife block, something like this. Usually it'll give you an array of different types of knives. The ones that I want you to look for are the ones that I talked to you about in the PowerPoint presentation. So the first one is the chef's knife, or the French knife. So this is your all-purpose knife. It's pretty large. Sometimes people are a little intimidated to use it, but once you get the hang of it, it's something that you will use for any type of cutting. The next one is your serrated knife. So see how it has a serrated edge right here, and how we talked about that it's for breads, pastries. I told you I really like to use it for tomatoes so that it doesn't smash the tomato down. Try that next time. But this is your serrated knife. This is your utility knife. So you can see that it is the same shape as a chef's knife. It's just smaller. So it's a little bit easier to use. People, sometimes it'll have a longer cutting edge, like we talked about. Remember, this is the cutting edge, this is the spine, this is the point, the handle, the tang is where it comes in here. And then you can see, remember right here, these are the rivets that connect with the bolster. So all knives have the same parts, they just come in different shapes and sizes, but they'll all have those same parts. But back to the utility knife, sometimes you'll find this one a little bit bigger than this, but it should look like a little baby chef's knife. And then the last one that you'll usually have in your knife block is a paring knife. So you can see that this paring knife is to do intricate kind of detailing. If you were to do any garnishing or anything like that, you can really get into the crevices of things. If you were trying to do detailed work with a huge chef's knife, that wouldn't work out very well. Sometimes you can have something called a boning knife, and a boning knife would be, it would look more like a utility knife, but just be a little bit longer, and that's for fabricating meats or for fabricating fish. Helps you get the bones out, but it also is flexible, so it helps you with doing all that. So I want you guys to look in your knife block and see if you have these 4 knives. So a chef's knife, a serrated knife, a utility knife, and a paring knife. And then also, we know this is a steel, and this is to sharpen your knives. There's automatic knife sharpeners that are out there too that are great to use, but you can also use a steel to sharpen your knife, and I'll show you how you do that. So you want to hold the steel down here, holding your knife away from you, starting with the back side of the knife, and then you're gonna go down with it and come back and go down with it again. So in a fluid motion, you can hear it. It sounds like it's sharpening, and that's what it should sound like. You don't have to go super fast and controlled, always making sure that the knife is going away from you and the blade is never going towards you. So you can sharpen your knives this way. All right. Next, what I'm going to show you is how to hold a knife properly. So remember, you want to put those 3 fingers underneath the handle of the knife. Your thumb is going to come over here, your index finger on the side, hugging that top of that blade up here. So you want it to be sturdy. Remember, we never want to put our finger on top of here because that doesn't keep it sturdy at all. It's going to have no control, but if you're holding the blade of the knife like this, you'll always have full control here. I have given you on Google Classroom a sheet that looks like this. So it's your at-home knife placemat. If you please print this out, and then what I did is I just put a plastic cover over it, is what we would be usually using in the classroom, and it protects the paper. If you don't have a plastic cover, that's fine. It's just that usually the water from your vegetables will get onto it and it will kind of bleed on here. But if you have a plastic cover, cover it up, the paper. If not, you can just leave it here. I'm gonna use this later on to show you. You're gonna place your cuts right onto this paper so that they go right on here, and you can see, because this is the exact measurements, if you're cutting them correct or not. So then you can start over if you need to. So it's a really good guide for you. Going back to our potatoes here. So you can use your peeler. So this is a peeler. I know some of you guys had a little bit of a hard time peeling your vegetables in your potato dish. You wanna take your peeler and you can either just go straight down onto the potato like this, all the way around. I sometimes find it easier to take it and kind of go towards me and use my thumb as a guide too to kind of get off all that potato skin. So you want to peel your potato, or you can use something else. If you don't have a potato at home, I took out a couple of things here that will give you some good yield on when you need to make those exact cuts. You can use a bell pepper because you can get a good yield on that. You can use a piece of celery. You can even use a carrot if you want to do these knife cuts. But a potato works great because it's easier for us to do that. So going back to my grip, I'm making sure my 4 fingers are here and my grip is good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to square off my potato. So I'm going to start by squaring off my ends here. And now I'm going to square off this side. Now I have a base here, so now my potato won't roll all over the place. I'm going to do that to all sides. And you can see that I'm using this claw technique where I'm putting my fingers underneath so that the blade never hits my fingertips. This also helps out when you're doing a lot of different cutting. Always keeping your fingertips tucked in that claw position so that you'll never get any cuts on your fingers. So you can see this looks more like a rectangle shape. I'm just going to make sure that I'm squaring it off so it's nice and flat and even everywhere. So that looks pretty good. If it's not all the way squared off, don't worry, it doesn't need to be perfect. But I know this is about 2 inches wide that I need it to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my planks. So I know here that I'm going to start off with my bâtonnets, which are 2 to 3 inches long and 1/4 of an inch around. So I want to make sure that I'm cutting them in the precise measurement that I need. So I'm just going to check and make sure that I have them to be a perfect length, and the sheet here is a little longer. See, this is about good. So if you want to use your sheet as a guide, that's perfect. We do have little knife kits in the classroom that help you with this, but if you want to use your paper as a guide, that's fine. So I have my 2 inches here. Now I'm going to go to make sure that it's 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to make my sticks now. So I made my planks and now I'm going to make my sticks. And I can see that those are very nice and they're consistent, okay? So I have my sticks here. If I was to use my sheet and put my sticks right into this spot, you can see that they fit perfectly in here, okay? So that's what you want to do for that. So now to give you an even easier way to make your small dice, which is also just 1/4 of an inch all the way around, I'm going to take one of my sticks and I'm just going to dice it now. So now I'm going to make those little tiny dices down here, and I know I need it to be 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it on my mat, and I'm going to see, look, it fits right into these little squares, exactly the measurements that I needed, because all I did was I took my sticks and I turned them the other way and I just chopped them up into small dice. So if you are cutting your sticks the proper length in the first place, then all of your knife cuts will be exact when you get down to your dices. So now what I'm going to do is I know I need to make my julienne, which is a little bit smaller. So now I had 1/4 of an inch here for my bâtonnet. Now I know I need 1/8 of an inch. So I need it to be a little bit skinnier. So I'm going to go back to my potato and I'm going to make this plank smaller. That one was a little, okay. Now I have my plank and I know that it is going to be 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to cut my sticks into about 1/8 of an inch. And you guys are doing this for the first time, a lot of you, so I don't expect you to be perfectly dead on each time. I've been doing this so I can know by looking how big things need to be. So you can see, if you look here, that I just placed it right on top and that is about 1/8 of an inch. So now I'm going to do what I told you I did last time. I'm going to take one of my sticks and I'm just going to chop them into a little 1/8 of an inch down here. And that should be my brunoise, which now I'm gonna place right here onto these little squares, and now I have my little brunoise. So you just take your sticks and you dice them up and you'll have the exact measurements for your brunoise. So it's a little tedious, but once you get that down, you'll be able to get those precise cuts pretty quickly. Since my potato is a little thin, I'm going to use another potato for my large dice and my medium dice. So I'm not gonna peel this one so that I could save some time here. I'm just gonna go around, see how I'm squaring off my potato, and I'm using the claw technique here. I'm going to get those ends off so that now I have a nice rectangle to work with. If you, like I said, if you wanna use this as a guide and see, okay, I'm gonna do a medium dice here, so I need to make sure that my potato is 1/2 inch all the way around. So I know I have a medium dice here, so I'm gonna make my plank about 1/2 inch here. And now I have my stick, and now I'm gonna go 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Now I'm gonna place them on my little squares, and there you go. They're exactly how they need to be. Now I'll go back to my potato. I'm gonna make it bigger. It needs to be 3/4 of an inch. So I know I need to go larger for that. I make a larger plank, a larger stick, and then I'm gonna go a little bit larger here. And there you go, right into my boxes. Okay? So there's the knife cuts for your large dice, your medium dice, your small dice, your brunoise, your bâtonnet, and your julienne. So if you get your bâtonnet and your julienne first, those sticks, you turn them to the side and you chop them, you'll have your small dice and your brunoise right away. So you don't even need to do a whole another cut for that. For your rondelle and your oblique, you'll use something usually that's round. So you would use a carrot, for instance. So I wanna peel my carrot a little bit here. So I have a nice outer look for it. Now this isn't very nice looking. So what a rondelle is just round, a round cut. So we're making sure that everything's consistent, because you always want to make sure that things are the same size so that they cook evenly. I saw this in your potato dishes, that some of you guys did cut your potatoes a little bit too big. Some of them were too small. The big ones won't cook evenly and the small ones will burn. So I have my oblique, my rondelles here, excuse me. So I'm just gonna place them on here. See how mine are a little bit bigger? That's fine, because that's the size of the carrot. But I just want you guys to make some round cuts with a vegetable that you have. You could also do this with, if you had a radish, because they're round, right? So you could do little round cuts with radishes and put them on here if you wanted to. And then what an oblique is just cutting it into a moon. So cutting it in half and placing it on here would be your oblique. Okay? So that's what you would be doing with this. One last cut I'm going to show you that is not on the sheet, but is very important, it's called chiffonade. And I'm gonna use it with basil. Usually you would always use it with a leafy green such as basil. But how you do this cut is these basil leaves are a little bit small. Usually you would find them a little larger. But what you would do is you would just stack them all up together like this. And then you roll them up, making sure that all the leaves are tucked in here. And now what I'm going to do, starting at the end, is I'm just going to run my knife very close together, and it should be a fluid motion here. And I'm making sure that my fingers are tucked back so that I don't get any cuts or anything. But if you use that claw technique, you'll never cut your fingers, I promise you. So you're just going in a fluid motion here. And since all of those were already all rolled up, you can see that what I'm left with is little chiffonade of basil. So it's almost like ribbons, and it's great for garnishing, but it's really easy if you use this technique to cut up basil for topping things and stuff like that. So you could use this with sage or different types of leaves too, but that's the last cut that I was gonna show you, which is chiffonade. So now what I'm gonna ask you guys to do for your next lab is to do knife cuts. So if you have a potato, that's preferable, but you can use other things. You'll let me know what you have to use at home to utilize to do your knife cuts, but you guys are gonna practice. So print out this sheet and it's your guide at home. It's your placemat to use. And it has all the measurements here for you guys to do exactly what I did. Once you guys fill up your sheet, you'll take a picture and then you'll send it in to me. All right, well that concludes this demo. Have a wonderful day, guys.